And here on stage, we are going to hear a fireside chat now about the journey of a Berlin unicorn. I'm looking forward to hearing this. Dennis, the stage is yours now.
Super.
Have fun.
Yes. No, I'm good.
Yeah, hello everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As already mentioned, our next topic is about one of the most valuable German fintechs, N26. N26 has had very eventful last years. They've finished a big financing round, launched new products, but they also have a couple of years dealing with some problems with the German regulator, BaFin. This and many more topics we now discuss with the co-founder, co-CEO and COO of N26. Please welcome Maximilian Teintal. Co-CEO, COO, and you also invested in a lot of startups. Sounds like a very stressful everyday life. How do you manage it?
It has been a very interesting life over the last year. When I did a lot of stuff before founding N26, and I can say today that leading N26, working in a startup, is by far the most meaningful thing in literally every dimension that counts to me that I've done so far. It's about the steepness of the learning curve. It's about the satisfaction when you can make your vision become a reality. It's about the impact you can have on people's life. And so I'm very happy, actually. It has been the last 10 years also like a very intense ride, a very challenging ride. But I'm as excited about leading N26 as I was like 11 years ago when I founded it together with my co-founder out of our living rooms.
What is the most dominant part right now? Is it the co-CEO role or is it the COO role at N26?
It is the COO role. So like 3 functions at N26, co-CEO, but it's a lot, working with our executive team, working on strategy, investor relations. Second one, MD of N26 Bank. That keeps me more busy. And I took on the COO role again. So I have all the scaling functions reporting into myself. And to be honest, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. It's also what I find always the most interesting, like laying in the trenches, like with our teams and working on very operational topics. In that case, when it's about customer service, it is the touch point of our customers, and that is such an important part of the value proposition we make.
We will focus on N26 a bit later itself. You come a long way with N26. You mentioned you founded 10 years ago. When you look back, what was the biggest mistake? What would you do differently today concerning N26?
There were so many mistakes, I would say, that you're losing track, but also like finding a startup, leading a startup, developing a startup is a lot about trying out things, seeing if they work, and if they fail, correct the course and reiterate. We went to the UK, we went out, we went to the US, in and out. We tried Brazil, for various reasons, we decided to focus on Europe, like other things, our expansion from Germany to the other European markets has been a tremendous success. I think, another aspect we will do different today, we did not focus enough on all aspects of compliance early enough. It is definitely something that where I would invest earlier today, but N26 by genetics is a tech company, and so originally we developed the company without a lot of people from the traditional banking space. We very much focused on on the experience of our users and on the way we learned both aspects are equally important, and that's a muscle we needed to build over time.
There's also been a lot of talk about leadership at N26 in the past. Did it take a long time to develop yourself at management level as quickly as N26 evolves and developed over the time?
Yeah, I think leadership in a company is always challenging, even more in a scaling startup, because the role of all of us is changing so much over time. You know, when you were founding N26, you know every cell in your business case, you know every slide on your pitch deck, and at one point in time you obviously realize you don't build, in our case, the pan-European bank in a team of 2 or 3 or 5 people, but it is very much about managing people. It's about defining a strategy, recruiting the best talent, engaging them, retaining them, putting the right tools in their hand. And so again, challenges are like the everyday work has changed tremendously, as you can imagine, and it is always, I think, important to stay agile and to keep learning, to, I think, be up for the challenges. And you know, when we talk about hypergrowth, for many years in the history of this company, every 6 to 8 months we doubled the size of our customer base. Every 6 to 8 months we also doubled the size of the team. And you can imagine, like, from everything from onboarding, providing the right tools, like the office space to the people, making them understand what it means to work at N26. You can imagine, like, if someone is getting an onboarding from someone that started 2 weeks ago, who got an onboarding from someone that started 4 weeks ago, these things become increasingly difficult. Think about the way to align the people behind your vision. At the beginning, it's clear for everyone what N26 is about, what we are working on, and then you have a stand-up which works well for 20 people. At one point in time, we realized, you know, when you have 500 people or 1,000 people, and some of them, working in a US office, for example, that a stand-up which is at 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday, is not working anymore, because for those people it's 3 o'clock. You know, there's really things that happen to us, and I think that's what makes it always, I think interesting, but also challenging. And in terms of, again, from learnings, it's like obviously many things you would do in hindsight differently. But I think what is important for us, that you see the long-term trend and then you course correct whenever, like, you discover that you have taken the wrong path.
Have you ever doubted to be the right person for the job?
No, I still think that I'm the right person to lead N26. Like, 1, I'm still very much behind the vision. Like, 2, I still feel it's the right learning curve. I learn new things every day. 3, I wanna lead this company for the next years. You know, there's so many things we still have on our roadmap, and measured by the size of the vision, we are still at the beginning of our journey, and there's so many more things that I want to put live, more markets, more customer, increasing the scope of the product, that I definitely want to be around for some more years.
I think one of the topics which is like on top of your roadmap is also the BaFin. What is the current status?
We are closely collaborating with BaFin as well as we do with our other regulators. It has been in the media. We are under a growth cap, like, for the last couple of years. In fact, there was a couple of shortcomings that were rightfully identified by BaFin and Bundesbank. The good news is we have resolved all these topics, and now we are waiting for the regulator to decide on the lift of the growth cap.
So N26 have the problem with fraudulent accounts fully under control?
Yes.
Okay. you mentioned it since December is like it's 60,000 new customers per month,
Yeah.
which is allowed. Before it was 50,000, so 5 months already. What are you looking for? Will it be dropped completely, or what is your vision of it?
No, I have stopped speculating about it. I said I feel it's soon in the past. I think it was never as true as today, but I would refrain from speculating exactly when it's going to happen.
Okay. You also changed your product strategy. You launched several products in a short time, which a lot of customers were waiting for a long time. Why did it take so long? Concerning trading, concerning crypto?
It is a question of prioritization. I think in the last 2-3 years, we were heavily focusing on compliance, scalability of the platform. So it's a lot of things happened that are not easily seen by the customers, but they are equally important because they will allow us to grow our platform to 20, 30, 50 million customers, so at very low cost. In terms of product launches, like we launched them now, we shifted a lot of our product resources, a lot of our teams, again, in driving innovation, and we're going to launch a lot of features soon. By the way, while we have not launched like big products like trading and crypto like for some time, we did a lot of that in Q1. We had already obviously worked on them in the last 12, 18 months before that, but some of these features, some of these products are just quite complex, and then now we launched them and we are also ready to roll them out very quickly across our markets.
Is it also because on your last earning call you mentioned that only 4.2 million of your 8 million customers are relevant for earnings? Do you want to be more independent on the BaFin requirements so that you get more of these 8 million into more products to earn more?
No, our business model is heavily dependent on growth. Let me explain why. If like the two of us have a good idea to launch an e-commerce product, we put a couple of €1,000 on the table and we launch something in a couple of weeks. But to scale that to many customers, you think about Zalando. It's an amazing company. The founders are personally invested in N26. To scale that up, you need like working capital, warehouses, a lot of people doing operation, packaging goods into boxes and send them out. Fintech, like N26, is the other way around. You need to do a lot of stuff at the beginning. You need to get a bank license, compliance, reporting to the regulator, issuing license to issue cards, a process integration to process card transactions, and many other aspects. But you have to build everything only once. And if we have built our systems right, it doesn't matter if we onboard 50 customers tomorrow or 50,000 customers tomorrow. So every customer we're adding right now has a good profit margin and is not affecting like any of our big cost blocks. And so like right now, a company in an early stage has usually two questions to answer. One is growth, and the second one is unit economics. How do I monetize customers? And the question for unit economics, when I was at events like this, it was very often a question got asked, like by journalists, from the public, from applicants that started at N26, and it was also fair. No one has ever monetized a customer with 0 fees in a negative interest rate environment and with a capped interchange. The interchange is like the fees that a merchant is paying for accepting the N26 card product. But we, I think, a very strong cost base, so very efficient systems. We were able to monetize the customer in a fair and transparent way without fees. Now the interest is coming on top. So the business model is something we really sorted out. And the only thing that's going to determine if N26 is a 2, a 5, a 50 billion company in some years from now is the growth. It's how many people, how many customers can we onboard to this very scalable platform. And You know, you mentioned trading, other features. It's also not, we launched these features not to monetize the customers, but we want to, you know, if I'm less concerned about how much profit we can make out of that feature, but it's about, you know, having the best and cheapest trading proposition on the European market, and it helps us to acquire another 500,000, another million customers that we can then monetize, like with our many other verticals we have at N26.
Why do you rely on, when focusing on trading and crypto, why are you rely on so-called white label solutions from Bitpanda and Upwest? Why don't you build it by yourself?
At the beginning, and I think many tech companies are like this, we had a tendency to build everything ourselves. You know, in the end, you have a CTO that want to build the chatting functionality, like the GChat or the Slack in-house. But at one point in time, we realized, you know, let's rely on the many companies that are really specializing on that in terms of many dimensions we care about, like quality of the product, price, speed of execution. Like using white label partners has been the best model. Like, think about trading. You know, they have like Upwest. Our partner has a couple of hundred people that are purely focusing on trading. Of course, we could build Upwest ourselves, or we could build Bitpanda ourselves. I think 500 people purely focusing on crypto for many years. Again, I think we can provide the better product for our customers at a cheaper price, quicker. So a lot speaks today for you know, making a smart, relying on a smart combination from building in-house and outsourced.
Two of your biggest competitors are Revolut and Trade Republic. How do you intend to prevail against these two players in the long term, as well as ING, DKB, or even right now coming up, JP Morgan?
Yeah, every industry has their challenges and their merits. I think in the banking industry, I need to think a little bit less about competition than in other industries. You know, if we would work on a messenger app or like on a social media platform, the only thing I would think about day and night would be competition. If you have 5 good friends and they're all using WhatsApp, you won't end up using Telegram. If you have 5 good friends that are all on Instagram, you won't stick with Facebook. Banking, I think, is different, and the macro trends are extremely favorable for us. I think there is literally billions of people around the globe on the market in the next couple of years. People that are still banking with the high street banks, and people that are not using the branch network anymore. And like for many of these people, you know, 2 things. One, they're paying for a branch network they're not using anymore. And now we can discuss if it's 60, 70, or 80% of the people that are not going to the bank branch anymore. It is definitely a growing number. And 2, in most cases, many of these customers don't have access to a great digital user experience. So we want to build a company with 50 million customers. That means we need to be concerned, how can we win like 4 million customers from Sparkasse or 3 million customers from BNP. We should be less concerned about that there's a couple of other challengers that are also working like trying to attract customers in the same space. In the end, I think the changing cost for a customer to change their bank account is lower than ever, and in the end, the customer will decide. It's the question who provides the best user experience at the best price. In the end, who is executing the best.
My last question would be about the future of N26. A few years ago, N26 was considered as an IPO candidate. When will N26 be ready for an IPO?
The question for IPO is coming for many years, and it's a very fair question. And for many years, I would have said the markets are amazing, but N26 is not IPO ready. Now we have worked a lot on N26, and I think N26 is ready, but I think the markets at the moment are not particularly favorable for IPOs. Now the good news is we are well funded. By the way, sometimes doing this for many years, sometimes you get the timing right, sometimes you get it wrong. We closed our Series E funding round of $900 million on on 26 November 21. For memory, at 30 of November, the markets peaked. So we are well funded. We are on the way to profitability.
But what do you think? Will it take 3 to 5 years, or can you be a bit more concrete?
We have no stress at all, and we also, very honestly, we don't have a concrete planning for it. But I can just say we don't need external funding. We can fund our future expansion out of our own profits.
All right, we'll have a look on that. Thank you very much, Maximilian Teintal.
Thank you so much for having me.